Hey guys, Ridiculous Badger coming at you from Planet 545, and let's SWE the People. Let's RWE the People, actually, today. Yeah, let's do that. With Resistance Week in effect, you have an advantage in that not only is the ratio skewed towards Resistance Weaken and that you need less Resistance Weaken to counter more Strengthen Weaken effect, but you've got more places to get the stuff in. Obviously, there's the hull, which is super important. That gives everybody in your party Resistance Weaken effects, so we like that. And the guild buff is arguably more impactful than the Strengthen Weaken effect guild buff, which is nice, because same amount of money. The other thing is that, yes, you only have 2 slots that you can utilize for equipment for Resistance Weaken, whereas Strengthen Weaken, one of them is a weapon, so that they can utilize 3 slots. They got head, weapon. You've got 2 slots, but you've also got gems. So, as far as gear goes, so you've got the Ghost Mask, which, unlike the SWE Gear, it's actually decent. It's got a decent amount of HP. It doesn't have a negative, even though, like, look, I mean, we say, like, all the good pieces of gear appear, like, there's a positive and a negative for the head pieces, positive and a negative, but with Resistance Weaken effect gear, the Ghost Mask, look, it's only a positive, but the negative is that the Resistance Weaken effect is just it's only utilizable in a very specific situation. So, like, one could argue that that is your negative. Whereas I argued, like, the opposite thing earlier. But it's different. With the rabbit ear headband, at high levels, it's only, like, plus 50 attack or something, and you need to get, like, a level 49 for that. It's not 49. It's like 36. Okay, tangents. Okay, so, but with the Ghost Mask, it's a decent amount of HP. There's nothing else to it. The Resistance Weaken effect part, honestly, for a lot of people, most of the time, that's value added. Now, you should keep this as a modular set that you swap in and out with comms, and you'll want to inlay gems accordingly. Obviously, Gemini and Libra are going to be your usual suspects, but there are some other options you'll want to consider when you do look at your main, which are like, hey, 3/5 of the time, what am I going to use this guy with? Usually it's going to be the same comp, right? Like Strengthen Weaken effect gear, you can pretty much chuck on anyone and it makes them god in the right situation. But with Resistance Weaken effect gear, the best that you could do is knock out the bonuses from Strengthen Weaken and knock out the debuffs that you would get. So it's basically like fighting same troop type. The more you get, great, but at the end of the day, you still have to fight them. With Strengthen and Weaken effect, if you attain the goal, you really don't have to fight them. So this is going to be a modular setup, but it's going to be something you probably already know in your head who you're going to stick this on. It's going to be your main battle commander. Most of the time, right? If you're maining Stella, gonna probably want to go something like Gemini Sagittarius, or Gemini Libra, or Gemini Pisces, or Gemini Aries, or I don't know, maybe you go Pisces Aries and go really defensive. Look, the thing is, you gotta look at who you're gonna use this for, and who it's gonna tip the scales so that they can win that fight. In my opinion, you're going to want to run this as a swap out for that specific commander and run the same 4-set gem sets that you're using with that main commander. If your Ghost Mask would be replacing an Eye of Chaos and you were running attack gems, run attack gems in this thing. If you were running accuracy gems, run accuracy gems in this thing. Whatever it is, this is going to be a set that you use when it can tip the scales of the battle. It's not going to be something that you generally run, but when you do use it, you still need it to perform, and you still need to have that fight. So for the legs, it's Speed of God, which has decent dodge. I think you should take advantage of that dodge and do as I say, not as I did. Run some dodge gems on that thing. You could also up it with Resistance Weaken gems. That's going to be great. But I would not sacrifice a chance for a 4-set gem set in order to get another Resistance Weaken gem. So if you were going to run Gemini Aries, then fine, I would say use the Ares for resistance weaken, but don't swap out the Gemini for like a Capricorn in order to get resistance weaken. I feel like I'm reading something from a newspaper. It's a little horoscopy up in here. So on top of that, you've got the resistance weaken gems. So it's going to be Aquarius, Capricorn, Aries. These can generate with the resistance weaken stat. On top of that, your Aquarius 2 set and your Taurus 2 set will give you a plus 30 resistance weaken effect. With that in mind, we could take that modular aspect a step further. So let's say on your main commander you don't run an Aquarius 2 set, but for your resistance weaken swap out, you want to. That's fine, run your Aquarius on your legs, and just make sure with that Aquarius you're going to stick that resistance weaken effect stat on there as well to double down on that. For your main comm, if you don't normally run Aquarius, prepare a chest piece to swap out. You could use that chest piece now in your resistance weaken swap in. So now your resistance weaken set is 3 pieces. I highly recommend using Black Knight for this. Black Knight is dollar for dollar the best return on a chess piece, and it has a lot of utility with that tier suppression. If you don't use Black Knight, you could continue to kit this out, laser focus to one specific commander, and if you know, hey, you're going to run infantry, then yeah, use a Void for it. Or you can use an Armor of Tyrant, is great for this as well. If you could get a really good roll on that, or even a slightly mediocre roll on an Armor of Tyrant. Maybe it's not your best one, maybe it's not your battle set, but you could use it for this purpose. And then you put that other Aquarius on there, you put that Aries or Capricorn, whatever, but you utilize that 2-set gem set bonus for Aquarius and get that additional plus 30%, and you utilize both leg slots and both chest slots for resistance weaken effect. For weapons, you could look at a Taurus, and if you do that, you would have to, in order to go for the 2 set in the optimal way, you would have to use the Taurus on the head. You're utilizing all of your chest and leg slots for resistance weaken gems, and Taurus, it can't spawn with resistance weaken on it, so that means you're throwing it on your head. And if you throw it on both your head and one of your weapons, then, well, you've got a Taurus 2 set. And a Taurus 2 set has the bonus, just like Aquarius, of a plus 30. And then you just, honestly from there, look, you use process of elimination. You've taken out all of the gems that you need to utilize for resistance weaken. You look at your main comm set and think, okay, I'm swapping out 3 of the pieces of gear. What does my main comm still want to use? Now, to finish off the set, I would roll back to that initial just head and legs and take a look and make sure that that works as a swap-in for your main commander. Then from there, I would start to look at getting a chest piece to utilize with the set. And then you could look and see how many of those slots do you want to utilize for resistance weaken effect, because it might not be all of them, keep in mind. And then from there, you could take a look as to how to swap in the pieces of gear from your main comm, and just making sure that the gems are at least somewhat relevant to each other. You're going to have one-off gems that you don't care about the type, or you don't care about the stat. Well, you'll always care about the stat. But you just want to make sure that you're not inlaying gear in a haphazard fashion. Like if you utilize troop-specific piece of gear and you utilize a universal piece of gear, like if you use a Dirge and a Titan, try your best not to put the Walker gems on the Titan. Put your Walker gems on the Dirge, right, for your resistance weaken, rather than putting it on your high-priority good gear. Now, I know you're thinking, hey, but Badger, I might then take that resistance weaken gear set and use it on another comm, and that comm might be infantry or air, and then they can't use that Dirge. At least allow yourself the opportunity to put the best gems that you have that are specific to your situation, but also allow for modularity down the road, and you will save yourself a ton in gems and in melange. It's worth it to try and figure out, you know what, maybe I need to put that gem on a lesser weapon in order to complete a set, so that you could use a more valuable weapon in more sets. Now, when things get hairy, you could utilize the Awaken mechanic, and you could get a ton of resistance weaken on this thing, and it could really, really augment your build, or allow you to even just run your normal set, which is huge. But save those for very specific situations, save them for a galactic battle, save them for really high-intensity fights, because that thing is expensive to run. Keep it real.